Red alerts blazed across Caxtal's monitors as the first Vexcar warships punched through Earth's atmosphere. Their massive hulls lit up the night sky like falling stars. But these weren't stars. They were harbingers of death, each one bigger than the largest human aircraft carrier. "This can't be happening," Caxtal muttered, his four-fingered hands flying over the control panel. They were warned. The Council made it clear. His antennae drooped with dread as he watched the invasion unfold. The Vexcar battle fleet, over 50 ships strong, spread out in attack formation, their silver hulls catching the last rays of sunset. Their energy weapons carved burning lines across Earth's cities. Caxtal's sensors picked up thousands of human deaths within seconds. The smell of burning metal filled his observation pod as his systems worked overtime to record everything. His communication array crackled. Human military channels burst with activity, not panic, but coordinated response. In mere minutes, missiles launched from silos across the planet. Fighter jets screamed into the sky, moving in perfect formation. Ground batteries opened fire, filling the air with streams of bullets and rockets. "Impossible," Caxtal whispered, pressing closer to his view screen. They're working together? Every nation, every military force?" High Commander Vralin's smug face appeared on all frequencies. "People of Earth, your resistance is pointless. Surrender now and—" The transmission cut off mid-sentence. A new voice, strong and clear, took over the channel. Admiral Rodriguez's image replaced Vralin's, her uniform crisp and her expression fierce. "This is Admiral Maria Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force. You attacked without warning. You murdered civilians. You expect us to bow?" She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with controlled fury. "We do not yield. Not today. Not ever." Caxtal's antennae twitched as he recorded everything. The humans should be running scared, should be fighting among themselves. Instead, they were fighting back. Hard. Together. Rodriguez's final words boomed through his ship. "You want us? Come and take us. Let's see how that works out for you." Caxtal's throat went dry. The Vexcar had just kicked a hornet's nest, and they had no idea what was about to swarm out. He almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Caxtal watched in stunned silence as Earth's forces defied all expectations, coordinating a resistance that sent shockwaves through the Vexcar fleet. He wasn't the only one witnessing this turn of events. On the ground, in the burning streets of Earth cities, humans braced for the next wave of attack. The battle had only just begun. The Vexcar ships cast dark shadows over New York's gleaming towers, their massive hulls blocking out the morning sun like artificial storm clouds. Captain Elias Carter wiped sweat from his brow as he waved another group of terrified civilians toward the subway entrance, his voice hoarse from shouting. "Keep moving. Underground shelters are your safest bet. Take only what you can carry." Above, alien drones buzzed between buildings like angry metal wasps, their engines whining with an otherworldly pitch. Their weapons sliced through steel and glass with horrifying ease, sending deadly shards raining down on the streets below. But something remarkable was happening amid the chaos, something that made Carter's chest swell with pride. Firefighters rushed into burning buildings while police officers helped the elderly and children, forming human chains through the debris. Military units worked alongside civilian emergency teams, sharing supplies and intel without hesitation. Carter had never seen anything like it, the whole city moving as one organism, each person playing their part without question. "Captain?" Sergeant Talia Grant's voice crackled through his earpiece, tight with urgency. "We've got boots on the ground. They're coming up 5th Avenue, at least 3 platoons." "Copy that." Carter sprinted toward her position, dodging debris and helping up a fallen elderly man along the way. He found Grant's special ops team taking cover behind overturned cars, their weapons at the ready. The Varkari ground troops looked fearsome in their metallic armor, each soldier identical to the next. They marched in perfect formation, weapons raised, moving like clockwork toys. But Grant had a surprise waiting for their unwanted visitors. "Now," she commanded. Her team popped up from multiple positions, catching the aliens in a carefully planned crossfire. The Varkari's rigid tactics fell apart against the humans' quick thinking and adaptability. Within minutes, the aliens retreated in disarray, leaving behind scattered equipment and their perfect formation in shambles. "They didn't expect us to fight smart," Grant said, grinning despite the grime on her face and a fresh cut above her eye. "Their battle plans are too stiff. No room for thinking on their feet." Carter's tablet lit up with an incoming video call. Dr. Lucas appeared, his lab coat dusty and singed at the edges. "Captain, we found a way to keep critical systems running. The aliens are targeting power stations, but we can reroute through backup grids. I'm sending instructions now. They think knocking out our power will cripple us. They're wrong." More Varkari carriers appeared overhead, their massive shapes blotting out the sun like metal mountains. Reports flooded in of similar attacks worldwide. London, Tokyo, Mumbai, all under siege. The coordinated assault was unlike anything in human history. But everywhere, the story was the same. People weren't panicking. They were fighting back, working together, adapting, making do with whatever they had at hand. Carter and Grant made their way to a rooftop, stepping over broken glass to watch smoke rise from their wounded city. The devastation was heartbreaking, but the spirit of resistance burned brighter than any fire the aliens could start. Grant's radio crackled with static before clearing. "Captain Carter, Sergeant Grant." Admiral Torres's voice cut through the noise, steady and determined as always. "Report to command immediately. We're planning our counteroffensive, and bring any alien tech you've captured. Every piece counts." They exchanged determined looks, a silent understanding passing between them. The real fight was just beginning, and humanity wasn't about to go down without one hell of a battle. As Captain Carter and Sergeant Grant secured their position in the ruined city, the real war was shifting behind the scenes. Deep in a fortified command center, humanity's leaders gathered, analyzing every scrap of data from the battle. The next phase of Earth's survival would not be decided in the streets, but in the war room. Inside the granite heart of the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Torres stood before a wall of screens, her face lit by their blue glow. The command center hummed with activity as military leaders from around the world gathered around a massive holographic table. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of coffee from countless cups that kept the exhausted staff going. "The Varkari follow a playbook," Torres said, pointing to orbital patterns displayed above the table. "First, they pound us from space. Then they land troops to mop up what's left." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her concern. "We have maybe 3 days before they try to take our cities on foot. And they won't be gentle about it." Captain Carter leaned forward, studying the data. His fingers traced patterns in the air above the display. "These attack patterns, they're almost too predictable, like they're reading from an old manual." "That's their weakness," Torres replied, tapping a control to zoom in on a particular formation. "They've conquered so many worlds, they've stopped innovating. They think they've got it all figured out." From a corner terminal, Dr. Lucas presented his findings, his excitement barely contained. "We've recovered pieces of their downed ships. The tech is advanced, but not unbeatable. Give me 48 hours with the intact craft, and I can start adapting their systems to our weapons. Their shields won't know what hit them." A Chinese general raised his hand, his weathered face creased with worry. "Using alien weapons? Is this wise? We don't understand their technology. It could backfire." "With respect," Carter cut in, his voice sharp. "We don't have the luxury of being picky. They're trying to wipe us out. I'd throw rocks if I thought it would help." Torres nodded, her lips tight. "Dr. Lucas is right. We need every advantage." She turned to the assembled leaders, making eye contact with each one. "I know we've had our differences, but look around this room. Russian, American, Chinese, European, we're all human. And humanity doesn't bow. Never has. Never will." Unknown to the gathered leaders, a tiny drone no bigger than a fly perched in the corner. Through it, Thaler watched with growing fascination. These humans weren't just fighting, they were adapting, innovating, coming together in ways his research suggested should be impossible for a species at their development stage. Their behavior defied all known models of societal development. "We've modified our missile guidance systems," Dr. Lucas announced, bringing up technical diagrams that floated in the air like ghostly blueprints. "Using salvaged Varkari components, we can now track their ships through their own stealth fields. They think they're invisible up there. They're in for a nasty surprise." A murmur of approval went through the room. Torres allowed herself a small smile. "Captain Carter, Sergeant Grant, I have a special mission for you. We've located a crashed Varkari shuttle near Denver. It's mostly intact. Get it back here to Dr. Lucas's team, and watch your backs. The Varkari might want their toys back." "Yes, Admiral," they replied in unison, already moving toward the door. "The rest of you return to your commands. Coordinate your defensive lines through this facility. We fight as one world now." Torres's voice rang with authority. "Dismissed, and good hunting." As the leaders filed out to their posts, Dr. Lucas headed for his new lab, already sketching designs on his tablet, muttering excitedly about power coupling modifications. Carter and Grant gathered their gear, preparing for their critical mission, checking weapons and sharing knowing looks. Torres remained at the holographic table, studying the enemy positions, her face set with determination. The weight of humanity's survival pressed down on her shoulders, but she stood straight and unwavering. In the blue light of the displays, she looked like a statue of old, unmovable, unbreakable, ready to face whatever came next. With a plan in motion and military leaders aligned, the time for strategy gave way to action. Far from the command centers, Carter and Grant were already en route to the front lines, one of many strike teams tasked with pushing back the invaders. Their next mission led them into the heart of devastation, the burning ruins of Shanghai. Through the ruins of Shanghai, Captain Elias Carter led his team between shattered buildings. Smoke hung thick in the night air, and the distant rumble of Varkari ships made the ground tremble. Broken glass crunched under their boots as they moved, staying close to the walls. "Targets just ahead," Sergeant Talia Grant whispered, her rifle scanning the shadows. The crashed shuttle's hull gleamed dully under the stars, its smooth metal surfaces marred by impact damage. A trail of debris marked where it had skidded to a stop, tearing up the pavement. Two Varkari guards paced near the craft, their armor catching moonlight. Their helmet-mounted lights swept back and forth across the wreckage. Carter tapped his earpiece. "Dr. Chen, we're in position. How's their tech looking?" "Their sensors are basic, motion and heat detection," came the reply. "The decoys should work perfectly. Just keep your distance until they're fully distracted." Carter nodded to his team. They deployed small drones that scattered in different directions, each giving off human-like heat signatures. The Varkari guards immediately tensed, their weapons tracking the false targets. Their head-mounted sensors swiveled wildly, trying to track multiple contacts at once. "Now," Carter whispered. Grant moved like a shadow, closing the distance in seconds. Her first strike caught a guard under the helmet joint, a weakness they'd discovered in earlier skirmishes. The alien dropped with a muffled clank. The second guard spun, but Carter was already there, his specialized stun weapon dropping the alien instantly. Inside the shuttle, they found 3 more Varkari, all injured from the crash. One clutched a bleeding arm while another lay unconscious. Grant raised her weapon, but hesitated when one lifted empty hands in surrender, making soft clicking sounds they'd learned meant submission. "We could learn a lot from live prisoners," Carter said quietly. Grant nodded, securing them with restraints instead. The injured aliens didn't resist. "Dr. Chen, we're inside," Carter reported, "walking you through the systems now." He swept his camera across the shuttle's control panels. "Excellent. Look for a purple crystal array, that's their power core. We'll need to stabilize it before transport. Should be behind the main console." Local resistance fighters emerged from the ruins, helping secure the perimeter while Carter's team worked. They moved with practiced efficiency, setting up portable barriers and sensors. The night had gone perfectly, almost too perfectly. Their first real victory against the invaders. Within an hour, heavy cargo helicopters appeared overhead, their rotors cutting through the smoke. The downdraft cleared the haze momentarily, revealing the full extent of the surrounding destruction. As they lifted the shuttle with thick cables, Carter watched the prisoners being loaded into secure transport. "Think this will help turn the tide?" Grant asked, wiping dust from her visor. Her voice held a mix of hope and exhaustion. Carter looked at the rising sun painting the sky red through the haze. "It's a start. We've shown they can be beaten." He smiled grimly. "And that's worth more than any tech we grabbed today." The battlefield fell silent as the last of their forces pulled out, leaving only empty streets and the echo of their success. Somewhere in the distance, a piece of debris finally lost its battle with gravity and crashed to the ground. The mission was a success. Carter and his team had secured vital alien technology, but at what cost? As the remnants of battle settled, the Vexcar fleet above Earth reeled from the unexpected resistance. Inside his flagship, High Commander Damaris received the troubling reports and seethed at the incompetence of his forces. His retaliation would be swift. High Commander Damaris stalked the bridge of his flagship, his clawed hands clenched into tight fists. The holographic display before him showed the smoldering ruins of Earth's cities, but something was deeply troubling. The humans were not surrendering or cowering in fear as expected. "Explain this at once," he roared, causing his subordinates to shrink back in trepidation. "How did they manage to capture one of our shuttles? Where were our security protocols?" Sub-Commander Velcor stepped forward, his mandibles twitching with nervous tension. "High Commander, these humans, they do not fight like the others we have conquered. They adapt, they learn our weaknesses far quicker than..." Weaknesses. Damaris whirled on Velcor, his scales darkening with rage. "The Varkari Empire has no such flaws." Nearby, in his cloaked observation vessel, Thaler carefully recorded the exchange, his instruments capturing the rising blood pressure and stress patterns in Damaris's voice. The legendary Varkari commander's legendary composure was beginning to crack under the strain. "Launch the second wave of attacks," Damaris ordered, stabbing a finger at the tactical display. "Target their command centers. Without leadership, they will crumble just like all the rest." "Sir," Velcor responded cautiously, "their military command appears to be distributed. We have already struck 3 presumed headquarters, but their resistance continues unabated." Damaris's rage deepened, his scales darkening further. A junior officer approached, data tablet trembling in his hands. "High Commander, we have located a human research facility in their mountain range. They appear to be studying our technology. The facility is run by their leading scientist." "Dispatch the Shadow Claws," Damaris commanded, silencing the bridge crew with his words. The elite Varkari infiltration units were rarely deployed, reserved only for the most formidable opponents. "The Shadow Claws, sir?" Velcor's voice wavered with disbelief. "Against a pre-FTL species?" "I said do it." Damaris slammed his fist against a console, his composure fracturing. He turned his gaze to the holographic globe of Earth rotating before him. "These humans need to learn their place. We will make an example of them for all who dare to resist the might of the Varkari Empire." In his hidden ship, Thaler carefully logged the exchange, his brow furrowed with concern. Never before had he witnessed a Varkari commander resort to such extreme measures against a developing world. The implications were both fascinating and deeply troubling. While the Vexcar commanders scrambled to regain control, Earth's brightest minds worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of their stolen technology. High in the Andes Mountains, a repurposed industrial complex buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers gathered around the captured alien shuttle, racing against time to tip the scales in humanity's favor. In the converted industrial complex nestled high in the Andes Mountains, Dr. Lucas looked at the alien shuttle with wide eyes, his breath catching at the sight of its otherworldly design. His team of engineers from different countries crowded around, their breath visible in the cold mountain air as they muttered excitedly in various languages. The morning sun glinted off the shuttle's strange surface, casting rainbow-like reflections across the hangar walls. "Careful with that panel," he warned as they began dismantling the outer hull, watching nervously as his best technicians worked. "We need every piece intact. Even the smallest part could be the key." Captain Carter stood nearby, watching the proceedings with keen interest, occasionally pacing back and forth. "What are you seeing, Doc? Anything good?" "This material." Dr. Lucas ran his hand along the metallic surface, feeling its odd warmth despite the freezing air. "It's unlike anything we've ever worked with. The molecular structure must be incredibly complex. Look how it almost seems to flow under certain angles." Sergeant Grant's voice crackled over the radio, breaking through the focused silence. "Perimeter check complete. All clear for now, though these mountain winds are making it hard to hear anything coming." The engineering team carefully extracted a glowing power cell from the shuttle's core, their movements slow and deliberate. Dr. Lucas's hands trembled slightly as he examined it, the strange light casting shadows across his face. "This energy output, it's remarkable. If we could replicate this, we might actually have a fighting chance." A sudden commotion erupted outside, shouts and the sound of running feet. Sergeant Grant's voice cut through the tension. "Contact! We have an infiltrator. Teams 2 and 3, hold positions." Captain Carter drew his weapon as Grant's team dragged in a struggling Varkari spy. The alien's scales gleamed in the harsh laboratory lights, its multiple eyes darting around the room at the human technology. "They know we're here," Carter said grimly, keeping his weapon trained on the captive. "No telling how much they've seen." Dr. Lucas stared at the captured alien, then back at the devastating weapons they were developing. His face showed the weight of their work. "Captain, I need to speak freely. What we're creating here, it goes beyond just defending Earth. This technology could change everything, the balance of power, the future of warfare itself. Are we ready for that?" Admiral Torres appeared on the main screen, her face stern but tired, clearly showing the strain of countless sleepless nights. "Doctor, I understand your concerns, but right now, our survival depends on this work. We'll deal with the consequences after we've secured our planet. Sometimes we don't get the luxury of perfect choices." The engineering team worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination. Finally, Dr. Lucas activated their prototype shield, holding his breath. Blue energy flickered and hummed, forming an unstable bubble around their test area, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "It's not perfect," he said, watching the shield sputter and wave like a flag in the wind. "But it's a start. Maybe our first real one." The shield held for 30 seconds before dissolving into sparks. But in those 30 seconds, they saw humanity's first real hope of survival. The team broke into tired smiles, knowing they just crossed a threshold there was no coming back from. With their research progressing faster than anticipated, Earth's defenders needed a battle plan to put their newfound knowledge to use. In a secure underground facility, Admiral Torres and her team scrutinized the enemy's weaknesses, preparing for the next confrontation. The moment of counterattack was fast approaching. In the hardened underground command center, Admiral Torres stood before a massive wall of screens. Her face reflected the glow of dozens of displays as satellite imagery showed Vex-Car warships arranged in tight geometric patterns above Earth. The alien vessels hung like dark stars against the blue of their home world. "Their formations are predictable, almost too perfect," she said, addressing the gathered military leaders from around the globe. "They're leaving gaps in their coverage here, here, and here." She pointed to specific areas on the display, her finger tracing paths between the enemy ships. Captain Carter stepped forward, his uniform crisp despite the long hours of preparation. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed his exhaustion, but his voice remained steady. "We've modified our ballistic missiles with components from the captured shuttle. The new guidance systems should let us punch through their defenses. The test runs exceeded our expectations. Sergeant Grant, fresh from the field with mud still caking her boots, added, "My teams are ready to deploy. We'll knock out their sensor arrays while they're focused on the main assault. Every squad leader knows their target by heart." The room fell silent as Dr. Lucas wheeled in what looked like a large generator, its metal surface covered in a web of glowing circuits. "This is what we've managed to create," he said, activating the device with trembling hands. A shimmering blue field appeared around it, crackling with energy. A working energy shield, scaled down from their technology. "We've mounted a larger version on our prototype fighter. It's already stopped everything we've thrown at it." From his hidden observation post aboard his cloaked vessel, Caxtol watched the proceedings with growing amazement. These humans had achieved in weeks what took other species years. Their drive was unlike anything he'd seen in centuries of watching civilizations. He wrestled with the urge to intervene, to help guide this volatile situation. But the potential ripples across galactic politics stayed his hand. For now, he would observe, though his heart ached with each passing moment. Admiral Torres moved to the command platform, her boots echoing on the metal grating. "Operation Thunderspear begins in 6 hours. Launch sequences are already programmed. May God help us all." Her words carried the weight of humanity's future. Across the globe, massive hangar doors slid open with the groan of steel and hydraulics. Modified fighters and warships, their hulls gleaming with newly installed alien tech, rolled out onto runways under the cover of darkness. In the command center, Torres boarded her flagship, ready to lead humanity's first major counterattack. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. The time for planning had ended. With new technology integrated and battle formations set, humanity's fleet prepared for its first major offensive. In the depths of space, the engines of Earth's newly modified warships roared to life. The battle for Earth was no longer just about defense. It was time to strike back. Admiral Torres stood at the command center's viewport, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing Earth's combined fleet ascending through the atmosphere. Each vessel represented months of desperate preparation, reverse-engineered alien tech grafted onto human ingenuity. The ships glowed like fireflies against the dark backdrop of space, their engines burning bright with determination. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Captain Carter said, his voice steady despite the tension. He double-checked the readings on his tablet, making sure every system was green. "Execute Thunderspear," Torres ordered. "Launch on my mark." She took a deep breath, knowing thousands of lives hung on her next word. Mark. The fleet erupted into action. Modified missiles streaked through space, their trajectories seemingly chaotic, but carefully planned to exploit gaps in the Vexcar formation. The weapons twisted and turned like angry hornets, leaving trails of blue fire in their wake. "Enemy ships responding exactly as predicted," Carter reported, watching the rigid alien formations attempt to regroup. "They're following standard doctrine, just like sitting ducks." Across the void, Captain Carter's cruiser activated its jamming array. The Vexcar communications dissolved into static, their neat formations wavering as confusion spread through their ranks. Several alien ships bumped into each other, their coordinated movements falling apart. "Sergeant Grant's team is aboard the target vessel," an officer announced, his finger tracking their progress on a separate screen. Inside the Vexcar frigate, Grant led her squad through dimly lit corridors. The alien ship's layout matched their intelligence perfectly. Steam hissed from overhead pipes, and strange symbols glowed on the walls. As they approached the engine room, movement caught her attention. "Contact!" a team member whispered, dropping to one knee. Grant raised her fist, halting the squad. Vexcar troops had set up an ambush ahead, but she'd anticipated this. She motioned to her tech specialist, who deployed a captured Vexcar drone. The aliens, focused on the corridor, never saw Grant's team flanking through the maintenance shafts. Their arrogance would be their downfall. The resulting firefight was brief and decisive. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the metal corridors. "Engine room secured," Grant reported, "beginning shutdown sequence. These guys never knew what hit them." Above Earth, the space battle unfolded like a deadly dance. Human ships darted between Vexcar formations, striking from unexpected angles. Torres watched as High Commander Damaris's forces struggled to adapt, their rigid command structure becoming their weakness. The battle plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. "Their flagship is pulling back," Carter announced, unable to hide his grin. "The whole fleet is retreating behind the moon. Looks like they didn't expect us to punch back so hard." Torres allowed herself a small smile as cheers erupted across the command center. The immediate orbit around Earth was clear of enemy forces for the first time since the invasion began. Officers hugged each other, some wiping away tears of joy. "Send word to all ships," Torres ordered. "Well done, but stay alert. This is just the beginning." She knew the Vexcar would be back, and next time they wouldn't underestimate humanity's resolve. Victory had come at a steep cost, and the war was far from over. As the first wave of Vexcar forces retreated, Earth's leaders took stock of the situation. But the galaxy was watching, and whispers of humanity's defiance were spreading far beyond their own world. Admiral Torres gazed through the reinforced windows of Lunar Base Alpha, Earth hanging like a blue jewel against the stark blackness of space. The recent victory had come at a cost. Debris from destroyed ships littered Earth's orbit, a grim reminder of the violence they'd unleashed. Twisted metal and shattered hulls caught the sunlight, sparkling like deadly stars. "The modifications worked better than expected, Doctor," Lucas said, his voice tight with worry. "Almost too well. We're becoming extremely good at this. The death toll from our last strike was unprecedented." Captain Carter nodded from his position at the tactical table, where holographic battle plans flickered and danced. "That's a good thing, isn't it? We're surviving. Last month we were getting our butts kicked across the solar system." "But at what cost?" Dr. Lucas ran a hand through his disheveled hair, pacing back and forth. "We've gone from barely understanding alien tech to weaponizing it in months. The Concordate's warnings about humanity being dangerous. Maybe they had a point. We're turning their own weapons against them in ways they never imagined." "We didn't start this fight," Sergeant Grant reminded him sharply, her fists clenched at her sides. Before anyone could respond, the room's lights flickered and dimmed. A shimmer in the air materialized into a tall, slender figure with iridescent skin that rippled like oil on water. Caxtal. Admiral Torres immediately drew her sidearm, as did her security detail. "Hold your fire," she ordered, studying the alien intently. Her finger stayed near the trigger, just in case. "I come in peace," Caxtal said, raising his four-fingered hands. His voice had an odd musical quality to it. "I've been watching. Your species' adaptability is remarkable and concerning. You learn faster than any race we've encountered." "You've been spying on us?" Carter's voice held an edge as he moved to flank the alien. "Observing," Caxtal corrected, turning his head with bird-like movements. "The Concordate sent me to monitor the situation. What I've seen has forced me to break my silence. Other galactic powers are watching, Admiral. They're becoming worried about how quickly you've mastered space warfare." Torres kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced through possibilities and threats. "Are you here to help us, or warn us off?" "Both, perhaps." Caxtal's large eyes blinked with transparent inner lids. "I can offer guidance, help you understand the technology you've captured. But you must understand, the galaxy is watching. How you proceed here will determine humanity's place among the stars. Your reputation is being written in these battles." Sergeant Grant stepped forward, her boots clicking on the metal floor. "We've killed so many of them," she said quietly. "Is there no way to negotiate? To end this without more bloodshed?" "The Vexacar don't negotiate," Caxtal replied with a slight shake of his head. "But how you fight them, how you treat prisoners, what lines you refuse to cross, these things matter. The galaxy remembers." Admiral Torres finally lowered her weapon, though she kept it ready. "Dr. Lucas, what do you think? Can we trust him?" The scientist studied Caxtal intently, His eyes narrowed behind his glasses. His knowledge could be invaluable, or this could be an elaborate trap. Though I have to admit, I'd love to pick his brain about their power systems. Torres walked to the tactical table, her decision already forming as she watched the battle simulations play out. We'll accept your help, Caxtal, but under strict supervision. You'll work with Dr. Lucas's team. But know this, any hint of betrayal, and our newfound combat expertise will be the least of your concerns. Understood, Admiral, Caxtal said solemnly, bowing his head slightly. Shall we begin? Time grows short, and there is much to discuss. With the tide turning, the question was no longer if humanity would survive, but how far they were willing to go. On the bridge of a captured alien vessel, Admiral Torres made the call that would take the battle beyond Earth's skies. The fight was about to leave home soil and enter the stars. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the captured Vexcar vessel, now renamed Defiance. The ship hummed with an odd mixture of alien and human technology. Through the viewscreen, Earth grew smaller behind them. All systems holding steady, Captain Carter reported from his station. The hybrid reactor's running at 85% efficiency. Not perfect, but it'll do, Torres said, her eyes fixed on the asteroid belt ahead. She'd fought countless naval battles on Earth's oceans, but this was different. They were taking humanity's fight into the depths of space. The crew's ready, Carter added. Every nation sent their best. Japanese tech experts, Brazilian tactical officers, Nigerian engineers. We've got them all. From his observation post, Thaler watched the humans work in perfect sync. A Korean navigator called out course corrections, while a Mexican weapons officer calibrated the targeting systems. Their differences seemed to make them stronger, not weaker. Admiral, Dr. Lucas called out from engineering. These power readings are concerning. The reactor integration is less stable than we hoped. Can you keep it running? Torres asked. Yes, but we'll need to cycle power every few hours. It's not ideal. Torres nodded grimly. They were working with cobbled-together technology, but it was all they had. The small fleet of 5 captured ships represented humanity's best chance to strike at the heart of the Vexcar presence in their solar system. Aboard his command carrier near Mars, High Commander Damaris received the alert. Human vessels detected on an intercept course, his subordinate reported. They've modified our own ships. Damaris's fists clenched. Impossible. Those primitive creatures couldn't possibly. The energy signatures are clear, Commander. They've not only adapted our technology, they've improved it. The truth struck Damaris like a physical blow. He'd underestimated these humans at every turn. Now they dared to turn his own weapons against him. He opened a channel to the Empire's Central Command, swallowing his pride. This is High Commander Damaris. Request immediate reinforcements. The Earth situation has evolved. Back on the Defiance, Torres reviewed the tactical displays. The asteroid belt loomed ahead, a perfect hiding place for the Vexcar outpost. Their small fleet would need every advantage to succeed. All ships maintain formation, she ordered. Remember your training. We didn't come this far to fail now. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person focused on their task. They'd drilled for weeks in the captured ships, learning alien systems, adapting them to human needs. Now it was time to put that training to the test. Thaler made another entry in his log. Humans continue to defy expectations. Their ability to unify despite differences and adapt to alien technology surpasses any species I've observed. The Vexcar's greatest mistake was assuming humanity's diversity was a weakness. The fleet cut through the darkness of space, moving toward their next objective. But the Vexcar had already begun adjusting their strategy. Across the solar system, High Commander Damaris tightened his grip, preparing a countermeasure that would test humanity's resolve like never before. Admiral Torres gripped the command rail as the Defiance slipped between 2 massive asteroids. The stolen Vexcar ship's engines were barely a whisper, thanks to the modifications they'd made. Station in view, Carter whispered. though there was no need for quiet in space. On the main screen, a sprawling metal fortress emerged from behind a giant rock. Gun turrets bristled from every angle. "More defenses than we expected," Torres said, her face tight but calm. "Captain Carter, commence Operation Shadow Strike." Carter nodded and sent the signal. 3 Earthships broke formation, racing toward the station with engines blazing. Vexcar fighters poured from launch bays like angry wasps. "They took the bait," Torres said. "Sergeant Grant, your team is go." In the station's blind spot, 4 small assault craft detached from the Defiance's hull. Their experimental cloaking shields, cobbled together from captured tech, made them nearly invisible. The battle erupted in earnest. Energy beams sliced through space. An Earth vessel, the Intrepid, took a direct hit to its port side. "Intrepid's reactor is destabilizing." Dr. Lucas's voice crackled over the comm. "Wait, I can redirect the power surge. It'll blow the reactor, but—" "Do it," Torres ordered. The Intrepid's dying reactor released a massive energy pulse. The station's shields flickered and died. "Breach teams, report," Torres commanded. "We're in," Grant replied, breathing hard. "But Admiral, you need to see this. We found holding cells. Dozens of them. Different species. All prisoners of the Varkari." Torres's jaw tightened. "Free them. All of them. Some are injured, scared, but they're helping us navigate the station's systems." The battle raged for another hour before the last Varkari defender surrendered. Torres stood on the station's command deck, watching Earth crews help alien prisoners to medical bays. "The station is ours," Carter reported. "We've got a foothold in the belt." Torres nodded, her eyes on a small alien child being carried to safety by one of her Marines. "Make sure every prisoner gets proper care. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore." Victory on the battlefield was one thing. Holding on to it was another. As Earth's forces secured the Vexcar station, a new challenge emerged. The rescued alien prisoners were not just survivors. They were witnesses to an empire's cruelty. And for the first time they saw a force willing to stand against it. Admiral Torres stood at the observation deck of the captured Vexcar station, watching Earth vessels dock alongside alien ships they'd never seen before. The freed prisoners' vessels were a mismatched fleet of different designs and technologies. "Admiral," Captain Carter approached, datapad in hand. "We've counted 37 different species among the rescued prisoners. Medical's overwhelmed." Torres rubbed her temples. "How many need immediate care?" "At least 50. Dr. Lucas says our medicines might not work on some of them. We're flying blind here." A tall, crystalline being approached them, its translucent form catching the starlight. It made a series of clicking sounds that their hastily modified translators struggled to process. "My people are grateful," the alien said haltingly. "But we fear the Vexcar will return with greater numbers." Torres nodded grimly. "We know, but first we need to get your people somewhere safe." "There is no safe place," the crystalline being replied. "Not from them, unless ... Unless what? Unless you help us fight back. Many worlds would rally to those who defeated the Vexcar." Carter shifted uncomfortably. "Admiral, we just got word from the tech team. They found something in the station's computers." They hurried to the command center, where screens displayed streams of alien text and diagrams. The freed prisoners had helped translate much of it. "Look at this." Carter pointed to a star chart. "These aren't just Vexcar movements. Other empires are mobilizing. They're watching us." Torres felt the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Earth had bloodied the Vexcar's nose, but now they faced a choice: press their advantage or play it safe. Thaler appeared silently beside them, his alien features unreadable. "Admiral, the Concordat is already debating intervention. They fear what humanity might become." "Because we fought back?" Carter asked incredulously. "Because you succeeded where others failed," Thaler replied, and did so with remarkable speed. Torres studied the station's layout on the main screen. They had a foothold here, A forward base that could support further attacks. But at what cost? And what message would they send to the galaxy by continuing their advance? The crystalline being spoke again. We have seen many conquerors, but never liberators. Torres turned to Carter. Get me a secure line to Earth Command, and find out how many of our new friends can fight, if they choose to. Humanity had won battles, but now they faced a choice that would define their future. Would they become conquerors themselves, or something greater? As Allied forces gathered, leaders from across the galaxy turned their eyes toward Earth, waiting to see which path they would take. Admiral Torres stood at the command center of the captured asteroid station, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the holographic display. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, dotted with the signatures of approaching Earth reinforcements. Our window of opportunity is closing, she said, turning to face the gathered delegates. The room was a stark contrast of species and cultures, human military officers alongside the freed alien prisoners who now sought alliance. A tall, violet-skinned being stepped forward. The Vexcar destroyed my homeworld. We must strike now, while they're weakened. Vengeance isn't a strategy, Torres replied firmly but kindly. We need coordination, not blind rage. Captain Carter nodded from his position near the tactical display. The Admiral's right. We've got the advantage now, but we need to be smart about this. Caxtal cleared his throat, drawing attention. The Concordat is unsettled by your rapid advancement. They fear you'll become another Vexcar, conquerors rather than liberators. We're nothing like them, Torres said sharply. Her expression softened as she looked at the freed aliens. We fight because we must, not because we desire power. Dr. Lucas stepped forward, tablet in hand. Admiral, we've made a breakthrough. The Vexcar FTL drives, we can replicate them now. We could reach their core worlds. A murmur ran through the gathered delegates. Torres watched their reactions carefully, noting the mix of hope and fear on their faces. Some species clearly wanted immediate action, while others showed hesitation. The question isn't just about whether we can strike, Torres said, addressing the room. It's about what kind of force we want to be in this galaxy. Do we unite others against tyranny, or do we simply become the next empire? Carter moved to stand beside her. Whatever we decide, we need to act fast. The Vexcar won't stay scattered forever. Torres turned back to the holographic display, studying the vast network of Vexcar territory. We need allies, she said finally. Not just fighters, but voices that will speak for peace when this is over. The violet-skinned delegate stepped forward again, this time with less anger in his stance. My people will stand with Earth, not for revenge, but for justice. One by one, other delegates voiced their support. Torres watched as former enemies became allies, united by a common cause. This was the moment, not just for victory, but for lasting change. Then let's begin, Torres said, straightening her uniform. Operation Prometheus starts now. The decision had been made. They would not simply resist. The fight would be taken to the enemy. With their fleet prepared and alliances forming, Torres led Earth's forces toward the heart of the Vexcar Empire. The final battle was approaching, and this time humanity was not alone. Admiral Torres watched the swirling patterns of FTL travel through the bridge viewport. The captured Vexcar technology, modified by Earth engineers, hummed with an unsettling rhythm beneath her feet. Jump gate approaching in 3 minutes, Captain Carter announced from his station. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements sure despite operating alien tech. Caxtal stepped forward, his silvery eyes reflecting the strange light. The Concordat patrols these sectors heavily. We should expect complications. Noted, Torres said, but we're committed now. The fleet dropped out of FTL in perfect formation, a mix of Earth vessels and their new alien allies. Through the main viewer, Distant stars sparkled against the void. Sensor data streamed across multiple screens, painting a picture of Vexcar space. Multiple signals, Carter reported. The Empire's called in every favor they have. Those energy signatures. Some of those ships aren't Vexcar. Torres nodded grimly. Their intelligence had warned of this, Vralin turning to old rivals for help against the human threat. The irony wasn't lost on her. In his lab several decks below, Dr. Lucas struggled with the final adjustments to their new weapon, a virus designed to exploit the rigid Vexcar command protocols. "This feels wrong," he muttered, fingers hovering over the console. "Using their psychology against them like this." "Sometimes the cleanest victories come from understanding your enemy," Sergeant Grant replied from her guard position. "Better than more bloodshed." Back on the bridge, Caxtal's instruments chimed urgently. "Admiral, I'm detecting concordant signatures at the edge of the system. They're watching, evaluating." "Let them watch," Torres said. "We're not here to conquer. We're here to end this." The tactical display lit up with hundreds of enemy vessels taking up defensive positions around their capital world. High Commander Damaris's voice boomed across all frequencies. "This is your final warning. Retreat or face annihilation." Torres straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Before them lay the heart of the Vexcar Empire, and the largest fleet they'd ever faced. The moment of truth had arrived. The capital system loomed ahead, its defenses formidable but not impenetrable. The Vexcar believed themselves untouchable, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. The battle strategy was in place, and as the countdown to engagement began, the fate of both civilizations hung in the balance. Admiral Torres watched the massive Vexcar fleet through the command center's main display. Their ships formed an imposing wall of metal and energy shields, protecting the Empire's central command station. "All strike groups in position," Captain Carter reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Torres nodded. "Begin Operation Shadow Dance." Across the star system, Earth's smaller vessels darted forward in carefully planned patterns. The Vexcar responded exactly as expected, their rigid battle doctrine demanding they chase down the perceived threats. "They're taking the bait," Carter said, allowing himself a small smile. "Look at them spread thin." In the darkness of space, Sergeant Grant's infiltration teams were already at work. Their modified stealth suits, reverse-engineered from captured Vexcar tech, let them slip past enemy sensors. They moved like ghosts between the capital ship's hulls. "First charges placed," Grant's whispered voice came through the comm. "Moving to secondary targets." Torres watched as Dr. Lucas's drone swarms activated, flooding Vexcar communications with carefully crafted interference. On her display, she could see the enemy fleet's coordinated movements becoming erratic and confused. "My Emperor, we've lost contact with the third battle group." A Vexcar officer's panicked transmission cut through the jamming. "High Commander Damaris, please advise." But Damaris's orders couldn't get through. The once mighty Vexcar fleet, designed to operate under strict central control, began to fall apart. "Detonation in 3, 2, 1. Grant counted down. Brilliant explosions rippled through several Vexcar capital ships as their power cores overloaded. The careful placement ensured the crews had time to evacuate, a choice that had sparked heated debate during planning. "We're not here to slaughter them," Torres had insisted. "We're here to break their ability to wage war." Now watching the enemy fleet scatter in disarray, Torres felt the weight of those choices. They had won through cunning rather than brute force, through precision rather than destruction. But the use of deception and sabotage still troubled her. "Main fleet is in chaos," Carter reported. "The path to Central Command is clear." Torres took a deep breath. Phase 1 of their final assault had succeeded. The Vexcar's greatest weakness, their inability to adapt, had been turned against them. As the first blows landed, the battle shifted from open warfare to infiltration and sabotage. The real victory would not come from brute force, but from strategy. While fleets clashed in space, strike teams moved in the shadows, executing a plan designed to end the war in a single decisive move. Admiral Torres stood before the assembled command staff in the flagship's war room. Holograms flickered, showing detailed maps of the Vexcar capital world and its defenses. "Operation Prometheus begins in 6 hours, she announced, her voice carrying authority without arrogance. "Each piece must work perfectly." Dr. Lucas stepped forward, gesturing to a network diagram. "My team has mapped their entire communications grid. Their rigid protocols are their weakness. One will exploit fully." "Show them," Torres said. Lucas tapped his tablet, bringing up strings of alien code. "We've created a virus that mimics their command authentication. When it hits, their entire network will tear itself apart trying to follow contradictory orders." Captain Carter pointed to several key buildings highlighted on the map. "While they're scrambling to restore communications, our strike teams move here, here, and here. Sergeant Grant's units are ready." "And the psychological component?" Torres asked. "Already in motion," Carter replied. "We've compiled footage from their own propaganda broadcasts, but we've edited it to show their defeats, their retreats. When their comms go dark, this is what breaks through instead." Caxtal watched from the corner, his alien features showing what humans would recognize as amazement. Never in his centuries of observation had he seen such an elegant approach to warfare. "The goal isn't destruction," Torres reminded them. "We remove their leadership, demonstrate our capabilities, and force a surrender. No planetary bombardment. No mass casualties." "The Vexcar won't expect mercy," Caxtal said quietly. "They've never shown it themselves." "That's exactly why we'll show it," Torres replied. "We're not here to destroy their civilization. We're here to end their empire's aggression." The room fell silent as final assignments were given. Each person knew their role in the intricate plan. They'd come so far from those first desperate days defending Earth. Now they stood ready to end the war with precision rather than devastation. "To your stations," Torres ordered. "Operation Prometheus begins soon." The final phase of the war had begun. On the ground, Rahimi's teams worked to dismantle the Vexcar's command structure. While in orbit, Earth's fleet pressed their advantage. The Empire's defenses were failing, but the battle was not yet over. Admiral Torres watched from orbit as Operation Prometheus unfolded on her tactical display. Sergeant Rahimi's infiltration team moved like shadows through the Vexcar fortress, their signals pulsing steadily on the screen. "Team Alpha in position," Rahimi's voice crackled through the communication. Her squad had used the modified stealth tech to slip past the outer defenses. "Moving to breach point now." Captain Carter coordinated the orbital strikes from his station. "Targeting solutions locked. Ready on your command, Admiral." "Execute primary targets only," Torres ordered. "Avoid any civilian zones." Below, Rahimi's team worked with practiced efficiency. They placed sonic disruptors on the fortress gates, the technology reverse-engineered from captured Vexcar weapons. The massive doors groaned and buckled. "We're in," Rahimi reported. Moving to secure the command center. Inside his war room, High Commander Damaris paced frantically. "Deploy the 7th Fleet. No, recall them to defensive positions." His officers exchanged worried glances as contradictory orders flew. "Sir," a subordinate interrupted, "our networks are failing. We've lost contact with the outer systems." Dr. Lucas's cyber assault had begun. Computer systems throughout the fortress flickered and died as his carefully crafted viruses spread through their networks. Rahimi's team encountered heavy resistance near the central command node. "Taking fire," she called out. But their modified shields held as they pushed forward, disabling Vexcar troops with targeted stun weapons. "Status report," Torres demanded. "Command center in sight," Rahimi responded. "Minimal casualties on both sides." They breached the final doors to find Damaris surrounded by his personal guard. The High Commander's face twisted with rage. "You dare!" he snarled. "You primitive!" His guards raised their weapons, but Rahimi's team was faster. Precise shots from their stun weapons dropped the Vexcar soldiers before they could fire. Damaris lunged for a control panel. "I'll destroy us all before surrendering to—" Rahimi tackled him, wrestling him away from the controls. The once mighty commander collapsed to his knees, his empire crumbling around him. The war was won, but its consequences were only beginning to unfold. As the dust settled, humanity's actions sent ripples across the galaxy. The Vexcar Empire had been humbled, but the true test lay ahead. What kind of power would Earth become in the eyes of the stars? Caxtal's fingers moved swiftly across his data terminal as he composed his final report to the Meridian Concordat. Through the observation window of his vessel, Earth gleamed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Species designation, human. Planet of origin, Earth, he began typing. Initial classification requires immediate upgrade based on unprecedented developments. Admiral Torres had just finished broadcasting the terms of peace across all frequencies. The Vexcar Empire would survive, but under strict oversight. No mass revenge killings, no planetary destruction, just carefully measured justice that left room for redemption. Humans display remarkable capacity for measured response, Caxtal noted in his report. Despite superior tactical position, they chose restraint over retribution. He paused to watch a group of freed alien vessels dock with Earth's orbital stations. Former prisoners of the Vexcar were now eager allies, drawn to humanity's demonstrated strength and compassion. Already, talks of a cooperative alliance system were underway. In his temporary lab aboard the station, Dr. Lucas Chen worked with a mixed team of human and alien scientists. They weren't building weapons anymore. Instead, they focused on adapting the captured technology for peaceful expansion. Faster ships, better terraforming tools, medical breakthroughs. Their adaptability extends beyond warfare, Caxtal wrote. Humans transform tools of destruction into instruments of progress with remarkable speed. He added footage of Captain Carter coordinating with former enemy commanders, helping establish new trade routes through once contested space. Sergeant Grant's team now trained alongside alien security forces, sharing tactics and building trust. Most significantly, Caxtal continued, humanity has achieved what the Concordat long thought impossible. They've united disparate species through example rather than force. He attached Admiral Torres's latest speech to the Galactic Assembly. She stood tall among representatives from dozens of worlds, no longer just Earth's defender, but a respected voice for stability across the stars. Final recommendation, Caxtal typed. Upgrade Earth's designation to Potential Guardians of Galactic Stability. Their unique combination of tactical brilliance, technological adaptation, and ethical restraint makes them ideally suited for this role. If you enjoyed the story of Jonathan, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.